Welcome, everybody, to a special edition of the RUDIS Wrestling Podcast. Today, I have a special guest, Rob Koll, head coach of Cornell University. Rob, how's it going?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So, obviously, it's probably been a pretty chaotic, emotional 48 hours, just over 48 hours. Let's jump back to Saturday night and jump right back in and break down. Number one, this was such an amazing match. Two matches between two phenomenal wrestlers. It's kind of a shame that this situation is, overshadowed how incredible these two competitors actually are, number one. But if you want to talk about just the competitors themselves, Yianni and Zain, and just a high-level performance in wrestling that they did, do that, and then maybe just jump in and break down from your perspective, what happened in that second match.
Well, I mean, obviously, I've known Zain since he's pretty young. He was right down the road in Benton, New York, and he's been up to our place numerous times. I recruited him, broke my heart when we didn't get him. So he's one of the good guys. I really do feel that way. And if I were on the other side, I would. I don't think they did a darn thing wrong. I'm not casting any aspersions. I got really frustrated with how that played out. Obviously, it was a fantastic match, both matches. Even though the first one wasn't particularly close in scoring, it was a great match, and I know the fans would have killed, and they did pay to see a third match. Unfortunately, I think people got in the way of making that happen, and hopefully we can resolve it amicably. But what do you want to know? I mean, it was a matter of a 50-second 50-second sequence with numerous sequences within that 50 seconds. Obviously, we felt that the scoring was ultimately was wrong, but at the same time, I thought Sam Julian did a great job of reffing the match. Came up, the match was over, and they threw the brick about 2 seconds before it was over. Had they thrown the brick 50 seconds earlier, about what they were complaining about, I would have no problem. Then Yianni could have had a chance to. They could have resolved the score. There's no way those two are going to get after it for 50 more seconds or 45 seconds, and more scoring wouldn't have occurred. But the whole procedure was flawed. Rick Tucci completely blew everything, and hopefully it'll be sanctioned and won't be roughing, and have a chance to do this to other people in the future.
Yeah, I guess. There's so many areas where we could break this down. So, number one, like you said, to your point, it's really unfortunate that the decision wasn't made by two wrestlers, that the wrestling didn't decide, who ultimately made this year's world team. And I guess those are the two scenarios. One, there's a discrepancy or probably a disagreement about how the scoring actually took place and what the score actually was. And then two, the application of the rules into this too.
Yeah, I have no problem with scoring. If they make a mistake, God bless them. They make a mistake. That's going to happen, and we can live with losing on bad call. But you don't go back and they challenge. Initially, I'm told they challenge. The ref told me, "Oh, we challenged the first sequence." And I said, well, you can't go back 50 seconds and challenge. You should have thrown the brick then. You don't throw the brick, 50 seconds later. Wait and see how it goes, and then just determine. That's why the rules are made that way. And he goes, oh no, it was just one sequence. I'm like, well, then the point shouldn't have gone up on the board until the end, right? I mean, it was just and then the argument kind of changed depending upon which ref you talk to, and it was just a kind of a comedy of errors. I feel bad for people like Rich Bender, USA Wrestling. I mean, he gets the heat, but what's he going to do? He did the rules are the rules, and they assigned certain refs to the mat, and it should have been handled on the mat. And then all of a sudden they conference, they're talking about it. They're Tucci's involved in that. Then they go back and watch the video. I mean, there's so many different rules that I've studied this UWW rule book from top to bottom. I think I could ref pretty effectively now, and you see all the things they did wrong, and it's just really, really frustrating. And then they defend themselves like, oh, it was one sequence. Like, there's no way you could possibly think that's one sequence. He goes, well, the whistle wasn't blown. I'm like, oh my God. So if the whistle isn't blown for 3 minutes, and that's one sequence. I mean, it just
I think that's what's frustrating too. Is like, what they're trying to rationalize and how they're trying to rationalize it when they switch it from situation to situation. Like, well, wait, what actually is this? Because this is the question I had right away initially. Once they threw up the initial score and the score was posted on the scoreboard, once the score was posted, it seemed like there was 3 different scores from Sam on the mat, the way he scored it, and then the 2 sides judges, they scored it differently too. And at that point, shouldn't they have stopped the match, gotten together, since there was discrepancy from the three judges?
That would be a logical conclusion, right? I mean, and I said, I don't want to sound like I'm complaining about the actual reffing at the time, because that happens. People, there's confusion. It's an exciting match, but they should have realized that there's 3 different. You can't have 3 different scores.
Right, and that in and of itself, by protocol, that's where it's called that the match judge should have stopped the match, correct? Right there, when there's discrepancy, you didn't have to throw a block challenge. There shouldn't be. That's where the match judge stops the match. There's discrepancy. They should have come together right there.
And then after the match, and then when we realized, oh, they're not reffing, they're not looking at the last sequence, which is what he had to be throwing. They had to be complaining about the last sequence when Zain looks over and says, throw the brick. Everybody, 5,000 people in that gym, 5,000 people knew that they were challenging that last sequence. So we're like, no problem. He doesn't expose, great. Then all of a sudden we realize, whoa, now they're going back, like just looking for something, 45 seconds. I'm like, what are they doing? So Yianni goes up with his bricks, like, hey, you can't do that. And Tucci's like, nope, you can't challenge the challenge. I'm like, we're not challenging the fact that they threw the brick or the call. We're challenging the fact that they can even throw that. And so they didn't give Yianni his ability to even make a protest of what was going on. They raised Zain's hand, and it's like, oh, it's done. Hands raised, and you can't go back. Well, it's like you didn't really you broke so many rules, and you disregarded so many different protocols. Our argument is, hey, this match is null and void. Either we win this match and we have a third, or that match is null and void and wrestle them both over again. Right. And hey, Zain might beat him. I mean, I'm not saying Zain is a hell of a competitor. Just felt that the way you can't go back in a football game, and if they throw if the coach protests a call, you don't go back and look 15, 20 minutes earlier in the game until you find something that you think can make, and then say, oh, well, you should have had that field goal was actually in 15 minutes ago. Game's over. Dallas wins instead of New England. I mean, that's how I felt. That's how I felt walking off that match.
Yeah, because really, because when you throw the brick, you have to tell the match judges what they want, what you're asking them to review, correct? So what did Zain's corner actually ask them to review, and then did they take it upon themselves to review other things? Is that what you're saying?
So I was told by Steckline at that later date that, oh no, they asked for the one earlier. Like, we can't do that. If he's and now he'll change the argument and say that, well, it was all one. We were just looking at the sequence. Like, when you're looking for 20, you're looking for 50 seconds. You can't you have to be very specific as to what you're asking for. You can't just throw a brick and say, that last period.
Right.
I want that whole last period rescored. You can't go and throw the brick and say, I want, hey, and once again, I don't blame Penn State. I mean, or Nittany Lion. I mean, the wrestling club coaches, that's brilliant. They got that. They got the ref. They intimidated the ref to do it. They got Tucci to do it.
You probably would have done the same thing, correct?
Yeah. Well,
given the other situation.
Certainly not. But you don't ever expect the ref to go with it. There's no way he could possibly go, okay, I'm going to go 45 seconds back into history, and rescore this whole half of it, literally almost a third of the match. You can't go back and rescore a third of the match without giving us our due process of having a chance to, hey, if you stop the match at the time, you have 40 seconds to go. No one would ever imagine that those two getting after it like they were getting after it, there weren't going to be more points scored. And I would have been okay with that. But you can't, after the match is over, say, well, 50 seconds ago, he actually was beating you. Sorry.
That's kind of the difference between folk style and freestyle. You don't reset the action based upon when the review was challenged, right, in the scoring sequence, and that's a little bit different, number one. Number two, I guess even if they would have challenged from the Matt judge's situation, I think what made it difficult for him is that even if Penn State would have challenged right away, the way scoring action looked imminent, there wasn't a good situation for the match judge to really stop the match, right? Because they were both in such. Yeah.
If they truly thought that they had scored 55 seconds earlier, that's when they would have thrown the block, right? I mean, obviously, if that was their intent, they would have thrown it then. They didn't think that was the case. They thought they were going to score, so they rolled the dice. You rolled the dice and you lost. But evidently, they didn't lose because Tucci decided otherwise and decided, I'm going to go and I'm going to be relevant. And I'm going to make a difference. And I truly feel sometimes these guys feel that way, and I'm sure they're nice people off the mat, and it's nothing personal. But on the mat, you shouldn't have someone who decides. I mean, it just seems so ridiculous. I know if you're a Penn State fan or a Zane fan, you're not going to feel that way, and I don't. That doesn't bother me at all. I would be the same way. And don't get me wrong. There's been opportunity times where we've come out on the right, come out right on a wrong probably too. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to stand up for my kid, and people are like, oh, you should just let this be. I'm like, that's not my job. My job is to go down in flames and fight for every second I can for Yianni, and then if at the end of the day, if they say you lost, and then you move on and figure out what you do next. But
and this is, just as an aside, I think you and I both feel this way. The great officials and the great judges, you never recognize them, and the problem here, you recognize them too much, and they imparted, and they made a judgment that they were making calls that they didn't have the authority to make, and for someone, of Tucci's expertise and his years of experience, like when you're breaking protocol, when you're imposing your opinion and your influence over a match, and that shouldn't be the case. And that's really what it comes down to, right?
He has to know the rules, had to know the rules. Although I think I woke him up as I came into the gym earlier in the day. I think he was asleep. I mean, I don't know what these refs do in between sessions. I don't know what they do the night before. I mean, he was definitely disinterested. He was just completely, disregarded anything Yianni had to say or I had to say, and just didn't want to have anything to do with it. Just wanted to move on. So I don't know. Maybe they thought that it's they're going to have a little bit of fun this weekend and go out and get back with their buddies but I thought Sam did a great job, very professional. He's a young ref. He does a fantastic job. I mean, and I don't always agree with all the calls, but it seems more often than not now I've noticed some flaws in some of the upper level reffing, and we need to make some changes. So that will be one of the things we're asking, is making sure that this doesn't happen to anybody else. If we win, if we lose, I'd like to make sure that USA Wrestling takes a look at their inner sanctum when it comes to the officiating.
Okay, so let's go post-match Saturday night. There seemed to be a little confusion or lack of clarity about how this process played out. 48 hours.
I went and I said, hey, look, I went to Bill's attic. I go, Bill, who do we petition to the fact that they won't let us petition? He goes, well, that'd be Tucci. I go, so the guy who said I can't protest is the guy I have to protest to. I said, it makes no sense. So the guy who came up there and literally wouldn't take our block is the guy I have to make my case for taking the block. So as I said, it was really frustrating. And I went through about 15 different people, and that's something that they need to know, a little more of a chain of command when you have a situation like this, because it does seem like it happens more often than not that there's somebody who's going to be disgruntled. I just hope it's not me the next time. And I feel bad for those guys, because I'm bitching and moaning and complaining and saying I want to figure out how to rectify this. Is there a way? And just tell me who and where and why. And finally, I was able to get a hold of Cody Bickley, and Cody was able to give me some direction.
Okay, so what's your understanding? How's the process going to move forward from here? And do you have a general timeline or rules that they have to follow?
Yeah, so we went through yesterday we had a meeting with the USOC ombudsman, drafting up a little document here, so it's not so little. It's our argument, and
So you actually had to you had to submit
four page
Okay.
argument, and we've had some help with that, which was awfully nice of some people from Cornell or Cornell associates, Cornell associated with the program, who are able to get the right terminology. I don't have legalese. I don't speak it, and I certainly don't write it. So it's been an interesting experience, and I don't want to go there. But at the bottom line is, it's what I have to do for my athlete. So we'll submit that today. Hopefully, get the right signatures to sign off on it. I think we will, and then they'll act from there. Whether it's USA.
Who will actually review this once you submit this? Who will review it and make a decision about how?
So that's a really interesting question. So I spoke to USA Wrestling. We were going to go through all their channels, try to, I'll send this letter to USA Wrestling, we'll send it to USOC, then ultimately we might have to go to the UWW, whoever the heck that is. Still feeling our way through. By the end of this day, I'll be able to answer these questions better, but I'm going to make sure the letter gets into everybody's hands, and then they'll get it. I'm sure they'll get a committee, whether the sports committee gets together and decides it, or whether the USOC says absolutely not, it's not going any further, or yes, this is something that's worthy of going forward. So to be honest with you, I'm still working through the process. How it plays out. I think what we'll do first is go through USA Wrestling and see if we can't go through every single one of their protocols, and then if that doesn't work, then you go to the USOC. You could file Article 9. I mean, it's just so much more legal crap that I want to deal with. I'm a wrestling coach. I'm not a lawyer. I despise the profession. My brother's one, so I don't want to go there. But at the same time, it's what you got to do. And if you go in and think you're going to handle it by yourself, then you're naive, and you're not doing the best for your athlete.
Yeah, I mean, this is literally, out of your hands.
We're not talking about East Stroudsburg Open here. We're talking about life-changing opportunity for our athlete and their athlete as well. And I certainly expect, even if we win, then they'll come back and counter and do whatever.
And it's just not. And the thing, Rob, it doesn't just have ramifications for this year's world team, correct? I mean, if whoever makes the team and if they medal, it gives them a distinct advantage moving into 2020 in the Olympic year, because you sit to the final trials, which is a huge advantage given the depth and the talent of 65 kilograms. So it's not just a decision for this year. We're talking about ramifications moving into 2020 as well.
And I laugh. I follow it online a little bit on Twitter. I don't do much tweeting, and I follow it a little bit, and I'll read the comments people make, and I don't think they truly understand the ramifications of this to these young men's lives. I mean, literally, it's life changing. It's their career. It's as if you get a promotion, you get the CEO position at Goldman Sachs, or you're working at the local Piggly Wiggly. I mean, and then not that extreme, but obviously, if you win an Olympic gold medal, your life has changed. It completely changes your career opportunities. It changes your financial opportunities, and this is the first stage of that opportunity. So to not fight, I mean, people simply don't understand. This is not just some match. This is not just some tournament. This is the biggest moment and opportunity in these two young men's careers. And I understand for us to win it is to take it away from somebody else. But that's my job, is to help our kid to win.
And that's what, in this instance, Rob, like whatever you're feeling, whether you're a Yianni fan or a Zain fan, I mean, that should be a moot point. That should be irregardless of what this conversation really is. It's about doing right. And both of these guys, in some ways, were denied the right opportunity. It was crazy. And so at this point, you probably don't even know. Okay, say the potential outcome goes in your favor. You anticipate, a subsequent maybe appeal on the other side, right? So you probably don't even know even the possibility of what a timeline would be if there would be a third match.
No, third match or a second match. If they voided the first one or the second one, and just said, okay, you're going to have the two. We don't care. Give us one, give us two. Obviously, we'd rather have a one. And there's no guarantee Yianni wins those matches. I mean, it's 50-50 at best. So, I mean, he's, we're not asking for put him on the team. We're asking for an opportunity to be put on for him to earn that right, or to earn the spot on the team. So I don't have a clue timing wise on this. We're expediting it as quickly as possible, but it's a little redundant there to expedite something. It is to do something as quickly as possible. But I'll know more by the end of today probably, and probably actually tomorrow where this is going. And it may be a moot point. This might not fly at all. I don't know. I mean, I've never done this before, and I don't want to have to ever do this again.
Yeah, and to what you were saying about how this process is going, once you introduce a legal matter, it's never going to be quick, and it's never going to be, for people that were thinking this was going to happen in Lincoln, no way. If this could stretch well into the summer, and that's unfortunate for both guys because it disrupts a number of things for both guys' training, their lifestyle, what they're truly focusing on. All these things that you're introducing are just really unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, we're not at the mindset to start filing injunctions and trying to go that route. That's not where we're going. I just wanted to have legal representation to make sure we put our best foot forward and make sure they look at the rules and interpret them the right way. I'm not saying we're taking this thing to a higher level. I'm just saying when we're preparing the document for people to read, we want to make it as clear, concise, and as accurate as is humanly possible. So I think we put together a pretty good piece. And
so I don't know. I mean, would you be comfortable sharing, the document, specifically what you're challenging here?
Once once it's done, it's actually we're working on a couple points right now. So I don't want to do it right now, but a lot of it is just it's pretty obvious what we're challenging is the protocol, how they went about and reviewed the brick toss, how the timing of everything, Rectucci's interplay and a couple different things he did incorrectly, and honestly, I think maybe the best chance is that they say, okay, they void that match, which is kind of silly because you can't say what didn't happen. But I feel that's a distinct possibility. Then we'd have to go wrestle two more, which you don't want to do. But at this point, we'll take whatever we can get.
Yeah. Okay.
I tell you what, though, it's changed. I was talking to Mike Gray and DeGay. It's like this whole, freestyle RTCs it's changed college wrestling so much. I mean, not college coaches anymore. I mean, you have your whole life revolves around RTCs and international wrestling and freestyle. And for me, it's the impetus to please push our freestyle and our collegiate rules a little bit more into the freestyle arena. Now we're saying, well, are you crazy and have this happen more often? But it's just become overwhelming. Your whole life, there's no downtime now in the college world, as far as coaching. It just never ends, and this is just going to drag it on even more so.
Yeah, I mean that is, they're good and bad conversations of freestyle and folk style. I mean the unfortunate thing about freestyle is like there's so much subjectivity in the rules and so much discretion on the interpretation of how these rules are applied. Yeah, I don't like it.
Yeah, but I think if we had more of it and they were doing it all year, it would be a lot more clear cut. You have, these guys, how often do these guys ref, 3 or 4 times a year?
How are they evaluated? I mean, those are the questions I had. Like, how are these guys trained? Is there continuing education that they have to subject themselves to? Are there different levels of tournaments and quantities of tournaments that they have to judge at? Right. I mean, I don't know anything about the judging process on the freestyle side of things. I have a familiarity about on the folk style side of things, what refs have to go through to be assigned different level of events. But I don't have an understanding when it comes to freestyle.
Well, I think they can ref in the folk style. You can ref almost every day. I mean, if they really want to, you can. I mean, during the season, you ref a couple times a night, all weekend, every weekend. These guys, they're getting a couple tournaments a year, so it is a little bit more difficult to stay sharp. If they watch, I guess you can watch video of it, but it's just not as natural. And a lot of these, I think a lot of these guys have never even wrestled freestyle, so some of the positions they're not familiar with the leverage and how you're starting a move, and if you have a person who comes in with new techniques, it takes a while for them to understand what's going on. So it's that's why I'm really excited about all the women's wrestling, because the women's wrestling is all freestyle. Now you've got all these women coming in who are teach their little boys and girls to wrestle when they're mothers, and that's really going to be, I think, the next big phase in wrestling in the United States, is when all these women start to go off and have little wrestlers, whether they be male or female wrestlers. So
Yeah.
and some of the
And
women
I
are
guess
very good.
the other thing with with Tucci, I think my frustration is he's not an active mat judge, right? Where he's the head of on the mat, where he's actually currently seeing guys. He's been designated to be, you know, for in folk style more like a rules interpreter. I was surprised to see him actually at the head table being the chair official.
The sport changes. You know, if you're
Yeah.
not out there reffing all the time or as much as possible, you just don't get it. And we shouldn't have. It's not as much age dependent, but guys who have stopped reffing for many, many, many years, hasn't ref for 15 years, and all of a sudden he's essentially our head official. I mean, the rules change so much. It's just, you would never see that in the NFL. Oh, well, he's going to be our head official. He hasn't actually reffed for a football game in 15 years, but we're going to put him in charge of the Super Bowl. He's going to be your head official. I don't see that happening. You know, and if it was,
I mean, that's a thing in wrestling, especially in freestyle. There are major scoring changes, not just rule changes, but the way things are scored, interpreted. Everything evolves and changes every single year. So if you're not actively currently on the mat, you know, working through how these interpretations are applied, it's way more difficult if you're not even on the mat doing that.
Yeah, it's almost impossible. And freestyle is so much. There's so many more. As opposed to folk style. I mean, folk style is a little more controlled. It's a much more controlled sport. So the subtleties and the nuances and the exposures are more difficult to call. So if you're not doing it every day, God help me, it'd be pretty darn hard. I don't know. So that's something they need to look at. And I don't know. I thought Sammy did a really nice job at the tournament, and most of the guys do. It's just, I've had problems with, I've had the same situation, not the same situation, but a situation where I completely disagreed with this one individual also again. So it's like, okay, here we go again. Why didn't we get this fixed the last time? So hopefully we will this time.
Yeah. Well, good, Rob. I appreciate you taking the time, shedding some light about the situation. It's unfortunate you're in it. It's unfortunate for Yianni. It's unfortunate for, all of wrestling. But I appreciate you jumping on.
It was so easy. Now I know you don't make a call based on convenience or what's best for the event, but you do. I don't think you overrule the standing call. It has to be definitively different. In my opinion. It's like in every other sport, it has to really jump out and say, "Oh, this was egregiously incorrect for you to change a call or change a score," and they took it upon themselves to impose their personality and their presence into the event, which is just really unfortunate. We need to make sure we don't have that happen again. So, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I wish I could give you more detail on the process, but it is a little bit, it's new to me, and I'm going to learn a lot about it next couple of weeks, next couple of days.
Well, as things flesh themselves out and you get more clarity, maybe we can jump on again. You can provide us an update if you feel comfortable doing that.
I do think it'll be fast, one way or the other. I think it'll be fairly quick.
Okay, Rob. Hey, thanks again for jumping on here, and good luck moving forward.
Thank you. All right, take care.